Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar, EDA and HBCUs, Cultivating Strategic Engagement for Regional Economic Development. I'm Brett Schwartz, Associate Director at the NATO Research Foundation, and it's my pleasure to host today's session, which is a joint offering from the U.S. Economic Development Administration and the White House Initiative on Historically Black Colleges and Universities. Now, this presentation is an extension of the 2020 White House National HBCU Week and Conference that was held virtually in September. And today's goal is to provide the HBCU community with valuable information describing EDA tools, programs, and partners, and how HBCUs can effectively engage with these resources to support the development of inclusive, innovative, and competitive regional economies. Now, we'll be hearing from federal staff at EDA and the Minority Business Development Agency, as well as leadership from HBCUs who will share their experiences and best practices in promoting economic and workforce development, community resilience, business training, and much more. Now, this is the second of 3 webinars we are hosting. Today's focus is on the EDA Atlanta region. Last week we had a session for EDA Austin region, and tomorrow we'll focus on the Philadelphia region. So here at the NATO Research Foundation, we're particularly excited about these webinars. We are a nonprofit research affiliate of NATO, the National Association of Development Organizations. And NATO is a membership association of regional development organizations all across the country. And these include the National Network of Economic Development Districts, or EDDs, which you'll hear much more about on today's call. So strengthening the connections between EDDs and HBCUs is an important aspiration, and one that can lead to multiple positive outcomes to support regional economic development. So I'm really looking forward to today's conversation to discuss ways to leverage federal resources to support HBCUs and their home communities. We've got a lot to cover, but before we kick things off, just want to share the agenda for today's call and some webinar logistics. So next slide. So here you can see our task for today. We've got a lot of really great content ahead of you. Following my introduction, we'll get an official EDA welcome from Dennis Alvord. Dennis is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Economic Development and the Chief Operating Officer at EDA. Following Dennis, we'll turn to the first of 2 modules, the first being HBCUs and the EDA ecosystem. And we'll first hear from David Ives, who's the Interim Director of the Performance and National Programs Division, and also a Planning Coordinator at EDA, where he'll talk about the SEDS and Economic Development Districts in more detail. Following Dave, we'll hear from Bernadette Grafton, also at EDA, who's a Program Analyst and University Center Coordinator. Well, she'll talk a little bit more about the University Center program and technical assistance and capacity building resources available to you. After Bernadette, we'll turn to HBCU engagement with EDA and hear kind of 2 case studies about what's happening on the ground in local communities with universities. We'll first hear from Malika Mercer-Bennett, who is the Director of the Economic Development University Center at Fayetteville State University in Fayetteville, North Carolina. And following Malika, we'll hear a pre-recorded session from David Wade, who's the Principal Planner at the Central Mississippi Planning and Development District in Jackson, Mississippi, where he'll be talking about a key partnership with Tougaloo College. After that, we'll be turning to our second module, which is about accessing relevant federal and capital resources. First hearing from Doug Lionett at EDA, who is the Director of the Economic Development Integration. We'll talk about some cross-agency resources and programs available to you all. And then finally, we'll hear from Joanne Hill, who is the Chief at the Office of Business Development at the Minority Business Development Agency, where she'll be talking about business assistance, access to capital, and some exciting programs and resources available to all of you as well. So just some quick logistics before we get started. To ask a question for our panelists, and I do hope you do have some questions, feel free to use the questions box to type on the right side of your screen, and we'll try to get to as many of those at the end of our session today as possible. We also received some questions in advance during registration, which we'll make sure to get to. And finally, this session is being recorded and will be made available along with the presentation slides, and there's quite a few, so don't feel you have to take too many notes because we'll be making sure to get all these out to you at the end. These will be available shortly on EDA's website, eda.gov. So with that, let's turn to our next slide. And it's my pleasure now to be able to introduce Dennis Alvord, who will welcome officially from the Economic Development Administration and kick off today's presentations. Dennis is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Economic Development and Chief Operating Officer at EDA. In these roles, he is responsible for enterprise-wide operations and program execution. Active in the department, he was selected as co-chair of the Department Management Council, comprised of senior executives from all of the Department of Commerce's principal operating units. Previously, as senior advisor to the Deputy Secretary, Dennis worked on a broad portfolio of department-wide management, operations, programs, and policy issues. So with that, Dennis, I'll turn it over to you, and thanks again for this welcome.
Great. Thanks very much, Brett. Great to be here this afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I'd be remiss if I didn't start by thanking Brett and the entire team at the National Association of Development Organizations for hosting and moderating today's webinar. We're so appreciative of their partnership in this and many other economic development endeavors. I'd also like to take a moment to thank our partner, Joanne Hill, the Chief of the Minority Business Development Agency's Office of Business Development, for being with us today. Joanne's a great partner, and we look forward to hearing from her later. And finally, last but not least, thanks to the whole EDA team participating in the webinar today. Dave, Bernadette, Doug, we've really brought out a number of our program experts at EDA for you today, and I think you're really going to enjoy hearing from them later on. So thanks to all of them. To all of you online with us today, including leaders from historically Black colleges and universities and economic development districts from across EDA's Atlanta region, thank you for your participation and your interest in this topic. The work that you all do to create economic opportunity in your communities is critical, and EDA is proud of our long history working with you to support locally driven economic development strategies. Similarly, EDA has a long history of working with HBCUs through a variety of EDA programs, principally through our EDA regional offices, but really across the board, across the entire portfolio of assistance that EDA offers. The most visible example of EDA's ongoing partnership with HBCU communities consists of 5 schools that have been designated as EDA University Centers within this region. That includes Florida A&M University and Fayetteville State University. EDA's University Center program makes the resources of universities available to the broader economic development community, helping regional actors to overcome challenges and capitalize on opportunities. And as many of you know, EDA also works in close partnership with the White House Initiative on Historically Black Colleges and Universities. In September, we were honored to be invited by Jonathan Holyfield to participate in the White House 2020 virtual HBCU conference. There, EDA and 4 of our sister bureaus, including MBDA, provided an introduction to relevant DOC resources that can be accessed and leveraged to support HBCU missions and priorities. And I want to thank Jonathan for his ongoing leadership and partnership in these endeavors. Today's webinar is an in-depth follow-up to September's panel, and it's really designed to provide you with an opportunity to learn more about EDA's regional ecosystem and the potential role for HBCUs. Joanne will also provide additional information on MBDA resources. So EDA, as the only federal agency whose sole mission is to support local and regional economic development, we see strategic planning as a really necessary first step, an enabling step to create a foundation for support and the development of diverse regional economies. Therefore, we support regional planning efforts through planning grants that are awarded primarily to our economic development districts, or EDD partners. EDDs occupy really a critically important and central position of importance within EDA's regional economic development ecosystem. They rely on the participation and input of regional partners to create and maintain their region's comprehensive economic development strategies, or CEDS. You're going to hear, I think, a lot more about CEDS in our discussion today. Participation in the CEDS development process provides these partner organizations with an opportunity to ensure that their various priorities and objectives are reflected in the plan that is designed to help promote economic development across that entire region. I'd also like to take a moment to note EDA's efforts to promote opportunity zones as key investment-ready locations. In January 2020, we updated our CEDS content guidelines to help communities across the country maximize their ability to attract investment to opportunity zones. The inherently regional focus of the SEDS program process really provides a unique platform to capture and promote the advantages of opportunity zone communities. Today's webinar is the first step in what EDA hopes will be a long process of establishing collaborative partnerships between the country's various HBCUs and regional economic development districts, or EDDs. We also look forward today to letting you know more about how EDA's economic development integration function can help you plug into a wide range of resources, including federal, state, local, philanthropic, and other resources to help achieve better outcomes for communities across America. By working together, we will advance efforts by HBCUs to join other regional organizations at the table to contribute to the SEDS process and learn more about the many assets available to them to support regional economic development priorities. It's really a win-win for all, and I thank each of you for your participation today and for your focus on improving economic conditions in your communities. Please enjoy the webinar, and please do not hesitate to continue to reach out if there's anything we can do at EDA to assist you. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dennis. Really appreciate those opening remarks and helping frame our conversation today, and of course for your tremendous leadership at EDA. So thanks for kicking us off. And so with that, we're going to turn to our presentations, and we're going to start first here with David Ives from EDA, who will be discussing more about EDDs and the SEDS, the Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, which really serves as a key foundation and roadmap for economic development planning at the regional level. So David, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Brett, and thanks again to NATO for hosting this afternoon and for all NATO does to help regions engage in effective economic development. Good afternoon. Again, my name is David Ives, and I'm with the Performance and National Programs Division at EDA headquarters. And I also serve as EDA's planning coordinator. And it's this idea of economic development planning that I want to focus on today in my brief time, because it's foundational to what we do, as Dennis mentioned, and it's where we believe that HBCUs can most effectively be integrated into community and regional economic development. Next slide, please. I want to start by talking about what economic development is, and it's really about bringing new dollars and generating wealth in a community or region. At EDA, we believe there's a public sector role in economic development, in particular, a role for EDA, and that's helping communities and regions build the capacity for economic development so that those new dollars can flow into and new wealth can be generated in that particular area. Building capacity means better positioning that community so that the private sector can succeed. In effect, you're building, improving, or effectively leveraging regional assets so businesses want to form and grow in that particular community or region. And this capacity building can mean different things to different communities, from basic infrastructure such as roads and water and wastewater systems to broadband, or it can actually take the form of developing networks or partnerships or collaborations focused on economic development. It really depends on what each community needs. And regardless of the type of capacity building, EDA strongly believes that good economic development starts with good economic development planning. And to that end, we've established a network of 392 economic development districts, EDDs, as Dennis had mentioned, which are mostly groupings of counties or other areas that have come together to say, hey, we have a common set of assets and challenges, and together, as a group, we can more effectively build the capacity for economic development. The primary mission of each EDD is to develop and implement an economic development plan. This comprehensive economic development strategy, or SEDS, is a regional blueprint about how that particular region is going to collectively build the capacity for economic development. It's a collaboration between the public, private, nonprofit, and educational sectors focused on identifying and leveraging regional assets. It's as much a process as it is an actual document. And that's really where HBCUs fit in. HBCUs are regional assets that should be part of the economic development planning that's undertaken through the SEDS process. So to that end, we've added new language to the SEDS content guidelines, which encourage EDDs to engage with HBCUs as part of the planning process as a key regional asset. The SEDS content guidelines are a set of recommended actions, examples, and tools that can be used by EDDs and other regional planning entities to develop impactful, strong SEDS. With a new language focused on HBCUs, we point not only to the strengths that HBCUs bring to the areas in which they operate, for example, from a workforce or talent perspective, but we also point to specific examples of where HBCUs and EDDs have already successfully been working together on economic development. Next slide, please. In addition to the recommendations with the SEDS content guidelines, we've also established, with the help of the Center on Rural Innovation and our friends at NATO, a HBCU EDD overlay map and contact list. And you can see portions of both of those on the screen right now. The map and contact list are intended to help identify which EDDs have an HBCU operating within their borders and help HBCUs determine within which EDD they're located. Both tools are a quick and easy way for HBCUs and EDDs to connect and begin to work together on economic development. And I should point out too that 83% of all HBCUs are located within an EDD. So clearly that's a good place to start for that partnership. As noted on the slide, both the map and the contact list are located on NATO's SEDS Central site, which has a wealth of information on the SEDS process and economic development planning in general. It's a really great resource, and I cannot recommend it enough. For more information on the SEDS and EDA's role in economic development planning, please visit our website at eda.gov/SEDS. And as always, a good place to start the discussion with EDA is with EDA's economic development representatives, our state points of contact, and they can be found at eda.gov/contact. I think I'll stop there. Happy to answer any questions at the end. And thanks again, Brett. I'll send it back to you.
Wonderful, Dave. Thank you so much for that introduction and really establishing kind of the groundwork for what this is all about based in the SEDS and the role of the districts. So next we're going to turn to Bernadette Grafton, also at EDA, who will talk more about EDA's University Center Network and the capacity building and technical assistance resources available through that programming. So take it away, Bernadette.
Great, thank you, Brett. As he said, my name is Bernadette Grafton. I've been with EDA for about 4 years, serving as the University Center Program Coordinator for much of that time. Next slide. The University Center Program is a competitively based partnership between EDA and academic institutions. And as was stated earlier, this program makes the resources and skill sets of universities available to the entire economic development practitioner community. Above all, this is a technical assistance program that seeks to leverage the university assets and engage a variety of stakeholders and partners to build regional capacity for economic development. This program is most effective when there are a number of partners involved. And some examples are here on this slide. EDDs are a prime example of some really strong partners of university centers and vice versa. But we've also got federal agencies, cities and counties, nonprofit organizations, other economic development organizations, and even workforce development boards. Next slide. The UC program has been in existence since 1966 and has changed quite a bit since then in terms of the type of awards and the type of funding. It's important to reiterate here that university centers are funded on a competitive basis, and this is for a 5-year period of performance during which university centers receive funding incrementally on an annual basis based on the prior year's performance. Next slide. The last competition was held in FY 2018, and for that, the program received an allocation of about $7.4 million, where the annual awards that have been selected in past years have ranged from $80,000 to $200,000 each. There's usually about 8 to 10 awards per participating region, and for each competition, we have 2 participating EDA regions involved. Next slide. As of the last competition, we have 64 active university centers in 45 states and in Puerto Rico. And all of these can be viewed on our website, which is being updated regularly to ensure that each university center has a profile page of its own that's as up to date as possible with website information, contact information, success stories, and really anything else the university center wishes to make public to anyone else who's interested. So we've got, as I said, we have 64, and of these, we have 5 university centers that are HBCUs, representing 3 of EDA's regional offices. Next slide. Those are listed here, which you may have seen before on our website, but just wanted to reiterate that we've got, we do have this partnership with many of our universities across the nation. We're hoping to make this, the program and the resources, just more transparent to those who may not be familiar with it. Later, you'll be hearing from one of these HBCUs, Fayetteville State University. So we're looking forward to that. Next slide. The next competition is actually this fiscal year, FY 2021. It'll cover our Chicago regional office and the Philadelphia regional office. The Atlanta regional office will be covered in the next competition in FY 2022, but it's never too early to start preparing and asking questions and learning about what the requirements are within the program. We strongly encourage you to reach out to your EDA Atlanta regional office reps ahead of time to ask those questions and get the conversation started, as well as just familiarizing yourself with the notice of funding opportunity. Next slide. Eligible applicants are listed on this slide, but in general, that would be accredited institutions of higher education, as well as community colleges or junior colleges are all eligible for this program. There is a matching requirement of 50% of the total project cost. And as I stated earlier, we would encourage you to reach out to your EDA reps to get a better idea of what qualifies as match and how to navigate that whole process. Next slide. University center activities can be bucketed into these general categories listed here on this slide. Most university centers fall into one or more of these, as well as in focusing their efforts on assisting units of local governments and nonprofit organizations in planning and implementing their regional economic development strategies and projects. Many of our university centers have targeted outreach, and depending on the needs of the region, that can be regarding commercialization of research, workforce development, business counseling services, and a number of other activities. As we stated earlier, the purpose of the program is to leverage the existing university center resources. So the project activity types would likely reflect the university resources that are available and the partners that are available to support the program. Competitive applications will document strong partnerships. So the partnerships should be very detailed in terms of what exactly each entity is contributing to the program, not just that there is support for the program. Next slide. I wanted to just provide some specific examples of UC program activities and draw yourself to the first and the second to last bullet here. So the first one with the University of Wisconsin Extension, they do a lot of data analysis and serve as a data hub for economic development organizations, including economic development districts. This has been a really great partnership for them, where the University Center and the EDDs go to each other's meetings and actually help each other further their own goals. We've also got Bowling Green State University Center for Regional Development and the University of Oregon. Separately, both of those university centers work extensively with their economic development districts on economic resilience strategies and updating their SEDs. So they're very informed of what each other is doing, and they try to meet those needs where they are stated. Next slide. Lastly, here's just some examples of program outputs and outcomes and the value of the university center programs that we have. A lot of this is around aligning university research with whatever the needs are, focusing on new business formation, strengthening relationships with the economic development ecosystem, and supporting connectivity with the organizations in the region. This is very limited. This is not necessarily to show the entire breadth of the activities and the program outputs, but just to give you an idea of what our university centers have done so far. So thank you all very much. I will stop there and give it over to you, Brett.
Yeah, thanks so much, Bernadette. Really appreciate hearing much more about the resources that are available to the university centers, and of course those future funding opportunities that are on the way. So now we'll get a chance to hear more about how university centers are making an impact in their regions through a local case study. Malika Mercer Bennett is the director of the Economic Development University Center at Fayetteville State University, located in North Carolina. Malika will discuss a wide range of economic development, workforce, and planning initiatives led by the university and its key partners. So Malika, thanks for being here and look forward to your presentation.
Thank you so much, Brett, and thank you to NATO for this opportunity. I'm really excited to share a little bit about what we're doing here at Fayetteville State. So we can go to the next slide. And we won't be spending time on this at all. I'm the director of the EDA University Center here. As stated, I've been in the role and in the field of economic development for about 2 years, so it's been a learning curve, but I'm really enjoying this process and the support that we're receiving from everyone. But we're not here to talk about me. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So a little bit about Fayetteville State University. We are a historically Black public regional university that's located in Fayetteville, North Carolina. It's the southeastern region of North Carolina. We are one of 16 institutions that fall under the umbrella of the University of North Carolina system. We offer 60 programs of study, 7 graduate degree programs, and a doctoral degree program in educational leadership. Next slide, please. This is just a brief play on a local social media trend showing where we started and where we are. We can go to the next slide. So our core identity statement we speak to here at FSU. We were originally founded in 1867 by 7 Black men for the purpose of educating Black children. We are the second oldest state-supported school in North Carolina and one of the nation's most highly diverse campus communities. We're very proud of the fact that we have a collaborative partnership with Fayetteville Fort Bragg and the Pope Air Force Base community. Most are familiar with the fact that Fort Bragg is one of the largest military installations in the nation. Next slide, please. So how are we positioned to support inclusive regional economic development? I venture to say the most understand the origin of HBCUs, that we were established to provide a system of higher education for Black students when they were originally denied attendance at other institutions. But with that being said, HBCUs have always been committed to inclusiveness and providing opportunities for all. And providing said opportunities, an example of that would be research that shows when students matriculate from HBCUs, those graduates are oftentimes better positioned for career and income generating opportunities. Research also reveals that there's a higher level of upward mobility for HBCU grads versus those that attend PWIs. So by establishing HBCUs in underserved communities, we not only contribute to the population growth, but we also produce human capital that supports local businesses, thus contributing to the economic growth as well. All of that to say that the relationship between HBCUs and regional economic development has always been mutually beneficial. We can go to the next slide. So I wanted to share information about a 2016 study that was conducted here with regard to Fayetteville State and our impact on economic development, both locally and statewide. We have quite a few slides. I will not read every single bullet point because it's lengthy, but we can go to the next slide. Just showing some examples here. We can actually move to the next slide as well. An example again, 160 million total output, 2,441 jobs that have been created. We show the impact on state and local taxes as well. And if we go to the next slide, we can see pretty much a summation of our economic impact, which includes the total economic incremental output, the earning potential of FSU graduates, the annual earnings of FSU alumni residents that stay in the area, the impact on state and local taxes, and the dollar amount for volunteer hours as well. Next slide, please. So how do we engage with our regional economic ecosystem? I've listed here a few bullet points. For time's sake, we might not be able to expound on each of these, but this information can be provided for those that are interested later. I'll start with the first bullet point. We can go to the next slide. So we have a collaborative partnership with the Fayetteville Cumberland Economic Development Corporation, and that recently culminated in the awarding of just under a $200,000 grant from the Golden Leaf Foundation to FSU's Broadwell College of Business and Economics. This grant is going to be used to establish an innovation and entrepreneurship hub here at FSU, and the EDA Center will be one of several outreach centers that will be housed under the hub. The purpose of it will be to help build upon existing support resources and entrepreneurial expertise at FSU, We want to assist small and under-resourced businesses in developing the skills that they're going to need to provide viable and sustainable businesses. The hub will provide everything from access to consulting services offered by our graduate and undergraduate students under the supervision of faculty. We'll have a workshop and webinar structure. We'll also have an idea space that will allow individuals to kind of get away from their offices, or those that may have, institutional barriers, to come and cultivate and share new knowledge. We'll also have a 3D printing system here that'll be available for community use as well. We can go to the next slide. Another example of our partnership would be our 10Ks Pathways program. We have a partnership with the North Carolina Community Colleges Association, which will allow individuals that have earned associate's degrees to then come to Fayetteville State and complete their bachelor's degree for a maximum out-of-pocket expense of $10,000. I want to say today we have about 15 community colleges that have signed up to participate in this program. We can go to the next slide. Another example of how we're collaborating and working to address disparity in positions of color in our region, we recently partnered with the Meharry Medical College out of Tennessee to establish a training program that's going to provide more physician and healthcare providers in the Sand Hills region. So that program will include 3 years, obviously, of pre-med, 3 years of medical school at Meharry, and then residency here in Cumberland County. We'll have a pre-dental track for those that are interested, as well as a rural track for individuals that want to work in rural communities. And this program is already underway here as well. Next slide. FSU is also a partner of the Cape Fear Research Consortium. It's a collaboration of academic, healthcare, and military institutions in the Cape Fear region, which is the area we live in, a nickname we have for it. And we promote scientific, academic, medical, and economic growth to the region by collaborating with each other on various products. Next slide. Another example of our partnership in the community would be our relationship with the city of Fayetteville, which is our local government. We recently had a conversation some years ago where they talked about addressing disparities, wanted to have a construction resource center. The city was concerned about the lack of minority contractors that were submitting bids for much of the work and the renovations being done in the city, and they sought to change that. So we were contacted and asked them to assist in that endeavor. This collaboration will allow us to have minority contractors use our resources free of charge, whether it's housing, blueprints, or having meetings. They'll have a space where they can do that. And I think I skipped ahead, but I'll go back to this slide as well. So we also collaborated with the city, with Fort Bragg locally, when they had a 40,000 reduction in force situation, and we collaborated to compile a study to talk about the impact that would have locally on our community and come up with ways to provide some kind of economic diversification locally in the counties that are surrounding Fayetteville and Fort Bragg. So we can skip through the next slide because I think I jumped ahead for that one as well. We can go to the next. Yes, thank you. So the introduction of our disruptive technologies minor, we feel that HBCUs are often expected to create a workforce that enables economic development. So to that end, we're uniquely adaptive in terms of being able to add new degree programs as needed to respond to emerging workforce needs. This program allows us to have a collaboration with IBM and Dell. They're providing everything from courseware and software to our students free of charge that will allow them to be certified in SAP and SAS at the completion of this course. And it's just another way to give them a competitive advantage and enhance their marketability upon graduation. We can go to our next slide. I won't read this verbatim because it's a lot of information, but it really is just a snapshot kind of providing an example of ways that we are engaged in the community. Our provost and vice chancellor serves on the board of several organizations in the community, and I do as well. So again, I won't read that because that's a little lengthy. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk briefly about the EDA. I mean, that's why we're here. Our first 5-year grant focused more so on selected industry clusters, specifically agriculture. We collaborated with several organizations to help small-scale farmers grow their businesses. So this slide really just provides some examples of some of the programming that we provided under that grant. I was not with EDA at that time, but as a result of this grant, when we came to the end of it in 2017, there were a lot of information rather that was provided to us about concerns and referrals that individuals wanted. But we can go to the next slide to show some of that information. So a lot of the questions that former participants had were with regard to capital for their businesses and training and technical assistance. So when we reapplied for the grant in 2017 and we were awarded that grant, which we're currently working under, we shifted our focus and addressed these issues. We can go to the next slide. So to that end, we have focused primarily on providing entrepreneurial training and access to capital under our current scope of work. So what we have proposed and the course that we've been offering, it's an 8-week online program that we offer free of charge to individuals that are interested in either starting a business or expanding their business. The deliverable of the course's end will be a business model canvas, because a lot of times companies don't want to see a 25-page or longer business plan. So the business model canvas is kind of a snapshot proposing what they're doing, who they're working with, who their customers are, analysis information. They're able to take that and the financial projections that they put together for their business and take it to our collaborative funding partner out of Raleigh, North Carolina, which is the Carolina Small Business Development Fund. We can skip to the next slide. So if they're interested and they're ready, they feel comfortable applying for funding, for loan funding rather, there are 2 pools of resources that they can apply to. The first is like a microloan pool where it's $500 to $2,500, and that's primarily focused on individuals that are just starting businesses or have business concepts rather. And we have another pool, which is $25,000 and above for those that are trying to expand their business. EDA, University Center here on campus, we don't have anything to do with that because that's loan requirements and et cetera, and those are determined by our funding partner. But for students that are ready and would like to go to that process and that next step, we offer the relationship where they don't have to go out and seek this money. We can just, facilitate the introduction and allow them to go to that next phase. And this just shows the number of participants we've had in the program to date. Next slide, please. We recently were awarded COVID response funding under the CARES Act. So the information provided here just speaks to the scope of work that we're focusing on moving forward with regard to that grant, just providing technical assistance as we've been doing. We've amended our course so that it includes some COVID recovery and response information, because that's been the bulk of the concern that we've got from individuals in the community that want to participate in the class, but not just for the purpose of starting a business. They want to know that they're going to be receiving information that's going to help them respond to these times that are really challenging. Whether it's something as small as, how do I take the products and services that I have and transfer that from a brick and mortar store to an e-commerce business. So we've kind of amended our curriculum to include some of these topics to help them as providing a seminar. We'll also be working with local developers to work on PPE. We've procured a 3D printer, so we'll be working on producing masks. We'll be working with our chemistry department here on campus to produce disinfectants. So this is just a brief overview of some of the things that we plan to be doing in the 2021 school year as a result of the CARES Act funding we received. We can go to the next slide. So kind of tying it all together and wrapping up with regard to how our university supports, how the work that we're doing rather supports the mission of the HBCU that we work for. I included information here about our core values, and I don't want to read the quote to you, but I'll basically say that it's vital for HBCUs, we believe, to include as a part of our mission supporting inclusive economic development, and to not just be so narrowly focused on the classroom education of our students. In times past, I think some have been of the belief that it's not our job to focus on what happens after graduation, or just to get employers on campus, or to encourage an entrepreneurial mindset in our students, and we should just teach them and let the rest take care of itself. But our position is that we have so many students that are coming from socioeconomically disadvantaged environments to a traditionally underserved and under-resourced institution, which is also in a low wealth area with high poverty and low education achievements. So we don't have the luxury of taking that position. We're not unique in that regard. I'd venture to say a lot of HBCUs can speak to those things, being in these communities that are underserved largely. But it's our goal to equip our students as best as we can and serve as bridges that connect them to access to resources and opportunities that are going to better position them to change their educational and economic stations in life. So facilitating these collaborative economic development relationships in our community really helps support us in this endeavor. I believe that is my time. I feel like I ran through that, but I just again wanted to express sincere appreciation and gratitude to NATO, to EDA, for the support and the encouragement. Anytime I have questions, again, I'm a newbie, everyone's so incredibly helpful, and I really appreciate that support. And I'm just thankful for the opportunity to talk a little bit about what we're doing here at Fayetteville State. So thanks again.
Great. Well, Malika, thank you so much. We appreciate you and all the incredible work that you are doing. Really inspiring stories, and I think highlights the power of partnerships and the importance of these ecosystems to really come through. So with that, next we're going to hear from David Wade at the Central Mississippi Planning and Development District in Jackson. This is an example of a really high-performing economic development district, which we've been hearing about throughout the presentations today. This is a pre-recorded session, and David discusses how the district collaborated with Tougaloo College on its updated master plan. So it's a real powerful example of an EDD HBCU collaboration. Again, this is a pre-recorded session, which those of you that have computer speakers should be hearing it fine. You may have some challenges if you're calling in just on the phone, but hopefully everyone doesn't have any problems with the audio. So at the end of all of our presentations, we're going to have all of our speakers on, and David will be joined by his colleagues, including the president of Tougaloo College, Dr. Carmen Walters, who will be able to answer some questions as well. But with that, we'll press play now, and you'll learn a little bit.
Okay, today I have the privilege of presenting to you the Tougaloo Master Plan that we developed. In the way of background, Tougaloo College is an HBCU with a rich history and a list of distinguished alumni. The Tougaloo College Board of Trustees saw a need to develop a master plan that would map out a way to help them implement the strategic initiatives that they had outlined in their earlier 2020 Vision Strategic Plan for the college. A former CMPED board member who also serves on the Board of Trustees for Tougaloo College was aware of our work and professional planning capabilities, and we were approached and asked to develop a master plan for the existing 75-acre campus, as well as the nearly 300 acres of undeveloped property surrounding the campus. Tougaloo College is located just inside the corporate boundaries of our capital city, Jackson, Mississippi. However, a portion of the undeveloped lands are in the city of Ridgeland. The majority of the property is in Madison County, with a smaller area being in Hinds County. Therefore, it was imperative that we work throughout this process and the planning process with each jurisdiction in the development of this master plan. Additionally, CMPED serves as the Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the MPO, responsible for transportation planning in the Central Mississippi region. So therefore, we worked with our MPO planners and partners to identify transportation-related needs around the campus. The intent of the master plan is to provide the Board of Trustees with a plan to develop and market their properties to private businesses. Tougaloo's campus is located nearly adjacent to Interstate 55, but has historically been separated from the retail and commercial development along the interstate by an at-grade rail crossing, as well as a misaligned intersection. Currently, a bridge is being built to cross over the rail, and also a realignment of the major east-west roadway that connects Tougaloo's campus to I-55, as well as the major retail corridor to the east. This new alignment and bridge will open up the undeveloped campus properties for development and essentially give it interstate frontage. Development of the Tougaloo property will create revenues for the college, but will also introduce additional revenues for the cities of Jackson and Ridgeland. The board will continue to own the land, but will offer long-term land leases for development. The leases will provide the college with a long-term revenue source beyond tuition and fees. The proposed commercial, residential, and recreational developments will also serve the Jackson metropolitan region. As an HBCU, Tougaloo College has developed partnerships with the Jackson Medical Mall Foundation, as well as the University of Mississippi Medical Center, to provide opportunities for students to enhance and further their education in healthcare-related fields. UMMC is home to the state's only academic medical center, dental and pharmacy schools, level 1 trauma center, as well as the Children's Hospital. Furthermore, healthcare is one of the leading industry sectors in the Central Mississippi region. This partnership results in equitable and inclusive workforce development opportunities that are vital to economic development. As a result of the master plan, the college has identified potential sites for an office park and research park that may further its influence on economic development in the region. Also, recently it was announced that UPS would be locating a distribution center and an office light industrial park located adjacent to some of the undeveloped properties owned by the college. During the master planning process, both Tougaloo College and the City of Ridgeland discussed the possibility of constructing a frontage road through the college property that would provide greater connectivity to the adjacent office and light industrial park. This frontage road has even been presented to EDA as a future project, and now with the location of UPS, it's very likely that this frontage road will be necessary. The collaboration of the city and the college in planning for this roadway during the master planning process makes implementation and construction of the roadway even easier. Not to mention it will create numerous new opportunities for development, and with the development comes additional work opportunities for students through internships, summer jobs, work-study programs, and hopefully full-time employment upon graduation. Now, the next thing I would do is show you a quick video of the master plan. This is actually a video of the master plan was created in an online story map format. Many of you have seen other plans done in story maps. It also implements web-based mapping that's interactive in the story map that's embedded. One of the things you'll see coming up here is a video. We also used our drone capabilities in this planning process due to the fact that we were dealing with about 300 acres of undeveloped raw land that had no real access to it, no roadways anyway. So we kind of wanted to show the vast properties and location near that's looking back east towards the interstate there, and kind of give you an idea of what we're dealing with, as well as highlight this beautiful campus. Tougaloo College has a really beautiful historic campus that I would encourage anyone to visit. The next thing you'll see coming up in just a moment is we broke down kind of 5 areas, 5 specific planning areas. Early on in this process, we identified 100 acres that we want to set aside and reserve for campus expansion in the future. And that will be coming up right here. Also, just to the north, we identified the Tougaloo Office Park, which is about 88 acres inside the city of Ridgeland. And that's the area that we mentioned would develop for kind of a technical industrial park, be an office light industrial park, and would also include that frontage road we mentioned earlier. The Tougaloo Center there is located just east of campus. It's inside the city of Jackson. We proposed a rezoning for that to a community mixed use district, worked with the city of Jackson planners on that. Pedestrian oriented residential and commercial is what we were proposing there. To the east of that, what you just saw was the Tougaloo Square, as well as a big box retail area. Those 2 areas would be reserved more for highway or vehicular oriented developments, more vehicle intensive, I guess, being near the highway there. And then of course you're seeing a fly through here that we utilize some of our 3D modeling to just help people visualize the potential for this property. And then of course it goes into showing you one of the interactive online maps, and it contains various layers such as the infrastructure, floodplains, parcel lines are included in there, as well as proposed zoning, etc. So that's kind of a quick overview of the story map, and by no means does that give you the entirety of the plan. We will be glad to provide links to the story map, as well as a PDF version of the plan if someone needs a printable version. But I would like to just kind of end this by saying we appreciate the opportunity to work with Tougaloo College. It was a great partnership. We just really enjoyed working with Tougaloo College. We look forward to seeing the development of some of these plans and the effect it will have not only on Tougaloo College, but also the surrounding area and the Central Mississippi region. So with that, I will end this presentation, and again, we'll provide links to all the things you saw here. Thank you very much.
All right, well, many thanks again to David Wade at Central Mississippi Planning and Development District for recording that session in advance and really showing how effective that story map is as a real visual tool for this project. But more importantly, really the collaboration and partnership that took place between the Economic Development District and Tougaloo College. So as a reminder as well, at the end, we'll have Q&A with David and his team as well. As the president of Tougaloo College, Dr. Walters, who can talk a little bit more about this experience and where things are going. So thanks again for that. So now we're going to shift into our kind of second module, which we mentioned earlier, and that's about accessing relevant federal and capital resources. And we're going to pivot to hear more about what's available from EDA and also from NBDA as well. So up next is Doug Lynett from EDA, who will discuss the economic development integration resources at the federal level and some cross-agency support and opportunities for all of you. So Doug, it's all yours.
Thank you, Brett, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. I've got a little bit of time available to focus on some of the specific ways in which the economic development integration practice at EDA can work with and support the priorities and objectives of HBCUs and their regional partners. Next slide, please. The economic development integration practice at EDA is almost 5 years old, and its overall goal is to enhance EDA's traditional strengths as an agency in order to optimize multiple investments in diverse regional economies. So EDI, the acronym for our division, Economic Development Integration, EDI, the policies and methods that we have developed over the past 4.5 years are designed to increase the return on investment of federal and other economic development resources through active partnerships to coordinate and streamline the investment of federal expertise and financial resources. The EDI practice facilitates strategic investments that can generate and sustain community-based economic growth. So as you can see on the slide here, there are 3 primary objectives that we have established to kind of guide our work, both in terms of the methods we develop and what they're intended to accomplish. The first is increased access. And here what we're trying to do is ensure that local and regional applicants can easily identify and apply for the federal economic development resources that can best support their priorities and objectives. We have a team at headquarters, but I want to point out that there is 1 regional integrator staffed to each of EDA's 6 regional offices. So for the Atlanta region, that is Milton Cochran. He is part of our team, which crowdsources interagency expertise to help communities and regions implement effective, innovative solutions to locally identified economic development needs. The EDI tools and playbooks help EDA and other federal personnel to rapidly identify the economic development partners and resources, federal and non-federal, that are, again, best positions to help support local and regional economic development strategies and priorities. The second objective is enhanced collaboration. Our team collaborates regularly with federal agencies, program staff, to streamline processes, to identify and leverage and invest multiple economic development resources, enabling applicants to maximize federal investments with minimal time and effort. We facilitate coordination among multiple partners and stakeholders, again, federal and non-federal, public and private, to promote multiple strategic investments in support of local priorities that can contribute to sustainable economic growth, especially for distressed communities. And finally, reduced administrative burdens. We are regularly working with our interagency federal partners to identify opportunities and establish guidance and tools that can help applicants navigate and possibly consolidate different administrative requirements that are triggered by each individual award of federal assistance. Next slide, please. So in the toolbox that we have created within EDA and that we are using in partnership with other federal agencies and regional and local stakeholders, the first one I'd like to spend some time describing for everybody today is something we call a Federal Interagency Resource Exchange, or FIRE. A FIRE is an information sharing event intended specifically for communities and regions that are experiencing economic distress and whose ability or capacity to mitigate the distress is impeded by specific factors, including general lack of economic development knowledge, capacity, or experience, and related lack of knowledge as to how to identify, access, and invest available relevant economic development resources. So as such, the FIRE as an event, as an economic development integration tool, this process is intended for communities and regions that have not yet initiated or established some core elements to local economic development, including a strategic plan of a type that Dave Ives described earlier. They have not established their main priorities and objectives for local and regional economic growth, and therefore they do not yet have a pipeline of projects that they would like to pursue in support of that vision. These are communities and regions, in other words, that have not yet identified either where they want to go or how they plan to get there. And so this is really intended for regional and local partners who are in the early stages of economic development, planning and strategizing, developing SEDS priorities, plans for economic recovery, adjusting to economic disruptions, including natural disasters or plant closures. These are areas where regional planning and collaboration capacity is not yet established or developed, and therefore the stakeholders are looking for information, connections, and an exchange of helpful and actionable ideas. So again, the primary objectives for this type of event, both to share information about the resources available from the federal government that can support a variety of different economic and community development projects and activities, but it's also to establish relationships at the intergovernmental level so that once a FIRE is over, the local and regional stakeholders have the names and contact information of a variety of different federal program staff with whom they can continue to collaborate as their strategic planning starts to commence and is completed as well. 2 slides ahead, if you wouldn't mind. We can skip the next one and go to the reds. So this acronym, and you may have noticed a pattern here, which is that we like to create acronyms that are also pronounceable words. Whereas a FIRE is intended to facilitate information sharing and relationship building, the REDS, or Regional Economic Diversification Summit process, is specifically and intentionally designed to catalyze project implementation. A successful problem-solving REDS engagement will benefit from EDA guidance before, during, and after partners convene for the initial summit. Regional integrators in particular play a critical role working in partnership with the summit hosts and sponsors to sustain interagency collaboration on project implementation tasks and capturing related outcome data. The common objectives for each summit and the subsequent project implementation process include enhanced collaboration, again, between federal agencies, but also at an intergovernmental level and cross-sector level, reduced administrative burdens and obstacles in order to enhance access to relevant economic and community development resources, optimal resource alignment. So working together to understand the best way to structure project financing, figuring out the optimal way to work with the different colors of money, as we like to say in this work. And project action plans and outcome evaluation metrics are really the most critical cornerstone of the REDS process, which again is intended to catalyze and facilitate the implementation and completion of a number of interrelated projects. And we want the summit itself as an event to serve as kind of the starting line for the creation of these project teams and the creation of metrics that can be used to measure the success of any given project. Next slide, please. So it's vitally important that each REDS is organized, sponsored, and hosted by local and regional stakeholders. We as federal program representatives are invited to participate in a locally sponsored event, not the other way around. It is in its role as the lead integrator of federal economic development resources, EDA's contribution to the summit and the subsequent project implementation process is to invite federal program representatives whose respective resources are the best match for the priorities and objectives that have been identified by the hosts and stakeholders at the local level. The REDS process does not start and end with the summit itself. As I've indicated, in fact, it doesn't even start with the summit, but it really starts in the weeks and months leading up to the initial summit. It is during this period that regional integrators play a critical role in promoting the summit and communicating expectations to potential participants pertaining to the types of presentations that are made and membership on various project implementation teams. Next slide, please. So finally, this is just a little bit of information about a summit that was held in the city of Philadelphia just over 2 years ago, July of 2018. The host for this particular summit is a really exciting business support center called the Enterprise Center, right in the heart of the city. It's the Enterprise Center, and one kind of cool trivia fact to know about the Enterprise Center is that it's located and headquartered in a building that used to house the American Bandstand broadcast. But now it's minority business and other entrepreneurial support services, and some of its funding comes from the Department of Commerce and the MBDA. So they were the host and convener of this event. There were a number of priority topics on the agenda, including the city's opportunity zones and promise zones as well. As you can see, the list of federal participants is quite robust. EDA, MBDA, the Environmental Protection Agency, HUD, Labor, Education, Treasury, and even the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia. I would invite everybody to go to the EDI web pages on eda.gov, and you can find information about a number of different summits that have been held across the country. There's a page at the end of today's webinar where that link is made available. So again, just invite you to see what we're doing through the EDI practice, where REDS have been held, and the types of topics that have been discussed. Look forward to your questions today and then anytime in the future. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you.
Great, thanks so much, Doug, and not only for some of the best acronyms in the federal government, but for the incredible work that you and your team does to help navigate those resources in the federal family. I think that should be reassuring to all the folks on the call to know that there are partners like yourself that can help bring that group together. So with that, we're going to have our final presentation for the day. Really excited to, as always, hear from Joanne Hill, the Minority Business Development Agency. Joanne's going to discuss some upcoming initiatives, some competitions, and a really exciting workforce development partnership with Amazon. So with that, Joanne, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks so much, Brett. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I'd like to just share that I am a proud graduate of an HBCU, so I'm honored to be a part of today's program. I graduated from Benedict College down in the southeastern region, Columbia, South Carolina, my home where I was born and raised. I had to put that plug in there. Next slide, please. At MBDA, just a little bit about our background. We serve nearly 11 million minority-owned businesses located throughout America. Those firms employ more than 8 million people, and they generate more than $1.8 trillion in economic output into the U.S. economy. These firms expand the U.S. economy, strengthen local economies, and support greater job creation. Next slide, please. Our vision is economic prosperity for all American business enterprises, and MBDA is the only federal agency that is specifically designed to foster and develop minority businesses and help them with their global competitiveness. Our core business is advising these firms through business transformation, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Next slide, please. Our impact is centered on 3 pillars: access to capital, access to contracts, and access to markets. In fiscal year 2019, in the area of access to capital, we generated $1.6 billion in capital for these firms. In 2019, we also, in the area of contracts, generated $3.1 billion, and those were both public and private sector contracts. Under the capital, it was traditional as well as alternative sources of capital. And in the area of markets, and markets in particular, global markets, as in U.S. exports, we generated more than $300 million in export activity with minority business enterprises that were clients of our national network of business centers. I should also note that I just received a report today, and we nearly doubled our performance for fiscal year 2020, where the total contracts and capital transactions that we supported these firms resulted in nearly $8 billion in awarded transactions supporting them. Next slide, please. In FY20, MBDA received a $10 million supplemental funding appropriation from Congress to support minority-owned businesses that have been impacted by the COVID crisis. The funding went to 30 of our grant recipients to support education training and advisement for small and minority businesses. Those 30 programs consisted of 25 MBDA business centers, our franchise model business centers, and 5 national chambers of commerce. And I will share more with you about those. Next slide, please. So the business centers that I referenced when I talk about our grant competition that's coming up in the near future, if you look to the left of the screen, you'll see a listing of all the business centers that we have there in the first 2 columns. Those business centers are really what I like to refer to as our franchise model business centers. They provide management and technical assistance to minority-owned firms. We have 26 of those. You can see the states where they're located. Our newest portfolio of investments includes our advanced manufacturing centers, our export centers, and our federal procurement center. You can see where those are located strategically throughout the nation. Our goal is to diversify our portfolio of investments, as well as to support the growth and competitiveness for the growth that we saw trends of MBEs that were growing in these areas. Our next investment that I wanted to mention is our American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian projects. As you will notice, we have 9 of those. We've got Alaska, Arizona, California, Michigan, Montana, New Mexico, Oklahoma, Oregon, and Washington. It's a really important priority for the agency. We also have an Office of Native American Business Development that is specifically designed to support that particular portfolio of investments. Other initiatives that we have include entrepreneurship for formerly incarcerated persons, a new competition that we just put out. These awardees were just awarded, and I'm very happy that we have our first HBCU that's a part of our portfolio now, is a part of the entrepreneurship education program at Morgan State University in Maryland. But you will see we have 4 of those. We have the Inner City Innovation Project, where we have 2 footprints, one in Georgia, one in California, and then we have our Enterprise and Women of Color Business Center, where we funded 4 of those this year. This particular initiative has been extremely popular. As you know, women business enterprises are helping to grow the economy here domestically, minority women notably, but also internationally. That particular program has had over 10,000 women business enterprises that have joined, become a part of, participated in that initiative over just the past year alone. But you can see that we have 4 now, one in the District of Columbia, Georgia, Hawaii, and Louisiana. And I'm happy that we are continuing to expand our footprint with regard to our locations. And the last center I want to talk about, our initiative, is the Minority Growth Equity Fund Initiative, our $1 billion fund initiative, which is designed to build out a $1 billion fund in growth equity for minority-owned firms that are seeking to grow and expand their companies through this non-traditional source of capital. We're making great progress with that initiative. It started last year. We are in phase 3 of the fund, and we anticipate by this time next year, we will be starting to put money out the door. As you can imagine, building a $1 billion fund is a lot of work. And so the foundation has been laid. Progress has been incredible. To Fayetteville State and Tougaloo College that's on the call, as you will notice, we do not have a presence in North Carolina or Mississippi, and we need to do something about that. So I hope that as we put out our new grant competitions in the coming months, that you will consider bidding on them so that we can expand our footprint. I will say that we had a presence in Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina, and we no longer have that presence. We also, during hurricanes Katrina and Rita, we had a temporary presence with a disaster recovery initiative that was down in Biloxi, Mississippi. I would encourage you to keep your eyes open for opportunities that could be coming up through new grant competitions that again would help us to reestablish our footprint in these 2 very important locales. Next slide, please. Upcoming grant competitions. We do have an upcoming grant competition that will be let. I anticipate that that's going to happen this fall. Please visit our website at mbda.gov. It will also be announced through a Federal Register notice. So those of you that have grant competitions on your radar where you're notified, you should receive notice of those. But I would encourage you, if you're not taking a look every so often, designate it to someone maybe over institutional advancement or one of your appropriate peers to keep their eyes open, because we're very interested in establishing a footprint with our grants through and a greater presence within the HBCU community. Next slide, please. The $1 billion fund that I just mentioned. This grant will be used to support minority-owned firms. Again, it will facilitate the aggregation and deployment of approximately $1 billion in growth capital into minority firms. The goals of the initiative are to quantify the demand for and current supply of capital focused on MBEs, minority and women business enterprises, leverage the extensive expertise and broad network that this trade association has. If you don't know the National Association of Investment Companies, on a side note, they are the preeminent trade association for minority, private equity, and growth equity firms. Some of them you might have heard about, others maybe not, but they are pretty awesome. They're celebrating their 50th anniversary this year, and we've been in lockstep with them along the way. In fact, MBDA provided them the initial grant to establish this organization some 50 years ago. Lastly, they would drive sustainable jobs and wealth creation and to make significant economic impact in historically underserved communities across the nation. Next slide, please. The Enterprising Women of Color Initiative, just a couple of points there. I just wanted to note and hone in on women of color represent 39% of the total female population in the United States, and they account for 89% of the net new women-owned businesses. We launched this initiative in 2019 to promote the growth and competitiveness of women business enterprises, again, both domestically and internationally. Through this initiative, we're creating pathways for these women-owned businesses to grow their networks, expand their client base, as well as connect to entrepreneurial ecosystems. Over the past year with this initiative, like our sister agency, EDA, that we're partnering with today, we built a very healthy portfolio of private sector partners, some of whom you know, including the Coca-Cola Company, Facebook, and IBM, and many more. Next slide, please. So I want to talk with you a little bit about an incredible partnership that the agency has developed with the Amazon Corporation. And that partnership is building a student-to-workforce pipeline to support HBCU competitiveness. We launched this at this year's White House Initiative on HBCUs. If you were there and you visited our Amazon booth, you learned about it. Next slide, please. So next slide, please. Thank you, Beth. So this particular platform that Amazon has built to offer certified cloud skills certifications was built because the LinkedIn data, according to the LinkedIn data, cloud computing was the #1 hard skill companies needed most in 2019. This was generated from a survey of 451 research that showed that 90% of IT decision makers reported cloud skill shortages and seeks this as an in-demand skill today. Next slide, please. So the Amazon Web Services Academy is a curriculum developed and maintained by the AWS, Amazon Web Services. It's post-secondary program integration. The courses are aligned to the AWS certification, and students finish this program employment ready. Next slide. Important to note, this training is offered by the Amazon Corporation free of charge to HBCUs, to your designated professors, teachers, or individuals that you designate that you'd like to teach this to the students. They will teach that to you at no charge. The certification is also offered at no charge. We're just trying to help get the word out to HBCUs because of this hard fought skill that is in huge demand, as you can imagine, with this e-commerce that's taking place, that's taking over everything these days, and encourage you to take advantage of it. The Academy teaches students foundational cloud concepts, architecting, developing operations, and data analytics. Next slide, please. Here are just a snapshot of some of the schools. Here's a snapshot of some of the schools that have adopted, both domestically and internationally, as well as community colleges. You can see Northern Virginia Community College, Miami-Dade, Louisiana. You can see New Zealand, Sao Paulo, or down in Brazil, and others, Clemson University. I'd like to get some HBCUs on that slide. Next slide, please. To learn more about how you can get signed up for the Amazon Web Services training, to have that inputted into your curriculum, please contact Ms. Angel Duncan. She's Manager of Global Growth and Equity Initiatives. You've got her contact information. Feel free to let her know that I referred you. But I will say that if you take advantage of this, you will be a part of the first portfolio of first movers of HBCUs that have taken advantage of this incredible offering. Next slide, please. The Minority Business and Technology Initiative is another prong, if you will, of a partnership collaboration we've had with the Amazon Corporation. This particular arm is centered on helping minority business enterprises locally to become e-commerce ready and put their products on the Amazon Marketplace to sell them. We launched this, Sun, Moon, and Stars Align. We had been working on this partnership for 2 years. We piloted it and had planned to roll it out in April. We'd worked on it for some time. Had no idea that COVID was going to hit, but couldn't have been timed more perfectly because those companies that had adopted, that were the early adopters, if you will, for e-commerce, are those that are faring very well right now. That's essentially what this Minority Business and Technology Initiative was designed to do, to help MBEs become e-commerce savvy and to use it as a sustainable growth strategy through enabling them to increase their online presence by leveraging the Amazon business as a solution to reach more buyers and sellers globally. Through this e-commerce platform, they have access to success coaches for putting their products and posting them on the Amazon business platform and connecting them with other MBEs, connecting them with buyers in the marketplace, where it promotes B2B linkages as well as potential collaboration. We had over 3,000 attendees. That number of 2,000 is a little bit low, but we had nearly 3,000, just over 3,000 now, because we've continued to promote these since April because of the demand. Next slide, please. So our winning plan at MBDA is winning the future now. The agency focuses on helping our firms today while preparing them to meet the industry needs of tomorrow. Our solutions are centered on digitalization, globalization, and think tank. The last nugget I will plug is for you. I know you love research and studies at the HBCUs, as all colleges and universities do. MBDA recently launched its Office of Policy Analysis and Development. It's in full swing. We have several studies that will be coming out that's used by colleges and universities when they're making the business case for supplier diversity, the importance, the economic imperative of supplier diversity, and MBEs, how they're helping to, the intel that we captured through our research really helps to make the value proposition for how we should be thinking about our competitiveness as a nation. At the end of the day, we do want to be number one globally, and what we are doing through this policy agenda that we have is helping to create research and studies that shine light on the impact that these firms have made, will continue to make into the future as it relates to our competitiveness as a nation, both here domestically and internationally. Next slide. Here's our contact information. Our website is here. Our phone number is here. If you're interested in anything that I've shared, my email is jhill@mbda.gov. Please send me a quick note. If there are any questions that I can't answer, I will find the answer for you. And I want to thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here today. Thanks so much.
Wonderful. Well, Joanne, thank you so much for the presentation. Lots of great resources there, and we'll keep an eye out for some of those future funding opportunities as well. So thank you for that. Up on the screen here, you can see some additional information and some links. So we know we threw a lot at you this afternoon here, but feel free to follow up with any of our speakers. And also check out some of these links as well. Again, the recording and the slides will be made available shortly at EDA's website. So we're running a little bit behind schedule, but I do hope we can maybe spend maybe 10 minutes or so answering some questions that have come through from the audience. So if the rest of the speakers could turn their webcams back on, we can have a little conversation here as well with all of you. And Dr. Walters, I'm glad you're the first one to rejoin, because I wanted to really give you the platform here to kind of reflect maybe a little bit on what you heard today. Again, this is Dr. Walters, the president of Tougaloo College. Thank you again for joining us. So I'd love to hear about either the master plan experience or just in general, just kind of your reflections on how you kind of fit and part of this larger ecosystem.
So thank you for having me go first. I'm sitting sort of an art gallery, so lights are everywhere. I apologize. But listen, this was a great webinar. I'm very excited to hear everything that was said today. I was engaged in the White House initiative on HBCUs, so this is just really something that kind of helps close the loop a little bit at this time of year. Working with CMPDD was started with my predecessor, the former president, Dr. Hogan, but all the board members are still here who did that project. And when I arrived, it was the first baptism for me of Tougaloo to start with that plan. And we are starting our strategic plan. We are late with it because of COVID, but we will be starting that in January. And this plan is a huge part of it. One of the exciting things that's already happening with this plan is they were working on opening up a throughway into our campus without all these winding roads and detours and all. And now that road will be open in February, coming straight off I-55, which is the main interstate in and out of Jackson, Mississippi. And that road is going to run straight in front of our institution. And so we are very excited because that's going to change the value of our land and change the model for who wants to come and partner with us. On the backside of our campus, where we had all of this growth, we are getting some traction there from the Ridgeland community to open that up. They just built a very huge, big container store that's opening up more opportunities for us. And so the plan was the beginning. And it's certainly guiding our work today. And we're certainly going to be much stronger because we started with such a strong plan. So I want to thank everybody who participated with that. And David, thank you for all your support. And this was wonderful today.
Yeah, great, Dr.
If I
Walters.
might
Thank you.
add,
Please,
Brad, I failed to mention in the presentation that this plan did receive a 2019 Innovation Award from NATO also. So that was presented to the Tougaloo Board of Trustees back in February at their annual luncheon.
Absolutely.
Yes, we're very, very proud of it.
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, David and Chuck, I'd love to just maybe turn to you briefly and kind of talk about the perspective from the EDD, reaching out, engaging with the university, what that experience is like, and maybe some recommendations for other districts around the country to really help kind of foster those collaborations. And you know, you have a wonderful partnership, how to kind of maintain that and sustain that over time.
Yes, it was a great opportunity to work with Tougaloo. I think it was a wonderful opportunity to work on a plan that is not only for Tougaloo, but is for the entire Jackson metropolitan area. As I've mentioned in the presentation, Tougaloo's property is in 2 municipalities as well as 2 counties, and centrally located really in the heart of the Jackson metro area. So it is truly a regional plan that will hopefully benefit, of course, Tougaloo College as well as the surrounding area. We also tried to be very conscious of the neighborhood around Tougaloo to the south and to the north. There are some residential areas that we tried to, make sure we didn't do anything that would damage those areas while, allowing for improvements of what is now just raw land. And as Dr. Walters mentioned, the roadway improvements are really key to this. It's going to open up some property that has historically been somewhat landlocked almost because of the railroad at grade crossing there and the misaligned intersection. So it was a great opportunity, and I would encourage anyone to work with their local universities.
Great, thanks, David. So Malika, we had a few questions come to you. I'll just kind of pile them all into one here. But one asked you mentioned your partnership with the Golden Leaf Foundation, and just wanted to hear a little bit more about kind of philanthropic opportunities and how that's supporting your work. And then also just in general, kind of similar question for university centers or just other universities in general, kind of tips, best practices for how to best kind of engage with the federal partners to make these happen. And of course, we saw from your slides, a lot of partners, a lot of relationships to make this work. So a little bit about the philanthropy, and then also just some tips and best practices. Well, Malika, you might still be muted.
Apologies, I didn't want anyone to hear the background noise. We're doing some. I hear people cutting grass and whatnot. I didn't want you all to hear that. So I guess with the funding that we receive, and this was addressed earlier about the match that we have to receive, our budgets are very limited. So what we've learned is that in order to accomplish a lot of the things that we want to do, we have all these grand ideas, but as usual, I think most of us can attest to this, money is always the issue. So there's always the do more with less expectations. So we've realized fairly early on, especially with regard to entrepreneurship and the support that we want to provide our students and therefore our communities, that we have to kind of step outside of the office and outside the campus and partner with individuals in our communities. So this was an effort that was facilitated by our interim provost and vice chancellor, Dr. Lee Brown, and our former provost, Dr. Pamela Jackson, to receive this grant through the Golden Leaf Foundation. In terms of partnerships, I think for me, one of the things that's been beneficial, specifically because we shifted our grant focus, and in doing so, providing new programming. I think when you're trying to get anything off the ground and you're in a small area and it's kind of hard to get the word out about what you're doing, I learned pretty early on that I needed to be more engaged in the community. So even though I'm only serving on one board now, I still maintain regular contact. I attend, whether it's chamber meetings or meetings with our Fayetteville Cumberland Economic Development Corporation. I partner with other local economic development entities. And what we've learned is there's a lot of overlap. We're offering a lot of similar services, but it may be an aspect that we're providing that, for instance, my partnership with the Women's Business Center and Seed downtown, there's some things that we're offering that they're not, and vice versa. So by getting out in the community, I do a lot of public speaking just to let people know what we're doing here on campus and what this program specifically is doing. We've been able to really build capital and let folks know what we're doing. And that in turn helps us to kind of program and market our programs and vice versa. So I'd say collaboration is a huge part of what we have to do, whether it is, again, from a financial standpoint or just letting people know, hey, this is a great opportunity. I'm not just saying it because I work here, but we want people to know what we're doing. And in order to do that, you have to, get outside the office and collaborate. So we're very fortunate to have a lot of established relationships, and we see the value in continuing to foster new ones, because it's been really beneficial for us.
Wonderful. Yeah, and it certainly shows. So thanks, Malika. A quick question for Joanne, and then two quick ones for EDA staff. And I know we'll wrap up. We're pushing over time. But Joanne, some interest here around the Amazon Workforce Partnership, which is wonderful. I know you've been promoting that a lot. And just the question is really kind of, what's MBDA's role? Are you just kind of helping kind of promote this effort, or what's kind of the long-term vision for what that partnership is? Because I think there's a lot of interest here, and as you've pointed out, it's a real tremendous and free opportunity for universities.
Absolutely. So MBDA's role is actually we serve as a liaison to the White House Initiative on HBCUs. And through this partnership that started with the Minority Business Technology Initiative, that's how it evolved to us learning about the Amazon Web Services. Our goal is to ideally get 100% of HBCUs to take advantage of this curriculum that's free. I mean, they will come out, they will train the college representatives, and students leave with a certification with this training. I mean, that's what I would love to have happen ultimately.
Great.
So may I say, this is so exciting. I know I took a photo of your slide and I sent it to my coordinator who's doing this with Apple and IBM. So this adds to this. And we do have a partnership with Amazon Web Services with our faculty for research. So this just reinforces the plan that we have in place. So thank you for sharing that. But I do want more information as well on the grant you spoke about. And so we're going to be looking at your website and trying to see if we can be engaged in that, because when I looked at the map, that's the first thing I did was, well, I'm from New Orleans, so I have to look for Louisiana, but then I also looked for Mississippi right away. So thank you for your presentation. We are going to be stalking.
Yeah.
Yes, Joanne, I'll definitely be in touch.
Please,
I saw North Carolina was MIA, and we have to do something about that. So I have your information, and we'll be in touch.
Yes, and you know, down in Louisiana, I just have to share that we had a presence there through Hurricane Katrina. Rita, you remember all that devastation?
Yes.
Disaster there, but then we just refunded. I'm so happy we got a presence back there. We just funded the WeBank, the Women's Business Enterprise Council in New Orleans, where Fela is heading that up. And I'm so happy about that. And please, again, like you said, keep your eyes open, because I think it was the school there, and I want to say Lafayette, but in New Orleans, they did compete for a grant that we had about 2 years ago, but that was a one-year piece, but there are more coming. So stay tuned.
We'll be engaged.
That's why we do these webinars, right? So great to see the connections. So two quick questions. Again, thanks for everyone for staying on a little bit longer. For Doug and Bernadette, who I think Bernadette's still here. But Bernadette, a question about university centers and kind of the length of terms for funding UCs support. Kind of what does that look like going forward?
So the funding is now, it used to be 3 years, now it's 5-year funding periods, and funds are awarded incrementally. So you get your funding 1 year at a time for that 5-year period. That's just how it's been handed out to us. So that's where we're at now. I don't foresee that changing in the near future. The unfortunate thing is that the total amount of funding that we have for the entire University Center program has been fairly stagnant. So we haven't had a whole lot of flexibility in terms of the amount of funding that we have. But we're doing what we can with what we have, and hopefully that we'll be able to change that in the near future.
Yeah, thanks, Bernadette. And then final question for Doug. Reds in the COVID era, what does that look like virtually, and have you had any of those sessions, and for folks that are interested in maybe taking advantage of that over the next few months or
yeah, thanks for that question. That's a great question. At the beginning of the pandemic, once we were all quarantined back in mid-March, we had discussions with the regional integrators asking them to please continue to promote these integration events and let our partners in the states and regions know that we can and will facilitate virtual versions of these. So we don't want anyone to feel like they can't reach out to EDA for this kind of integration assistance during quarantine. And we have in fact facilitated virtual REDs and fires while we've been sheltering in place. So yes, we can do that.
Wonderful. Great. Well, listen, I want to thank everyone for participating, our speakers, our attendees. We still have over 100 on the call here, and we went 10 minutes over, which I think is a really good sign. This whole thing was really about kind of partnerships, relationships, making sure that you know what resources are available out there. And again, if you're wondering, what's next? What's my first step? Make sure to reach out to the EDA Atlanta office. That's your first kind of engagement to make some contact there and learn a little bit more about how you can partner and have some of those resources in place. So again, we're really excited to have had this opportunity to bring this group together. And again, hope it's the first of many more conversations. But feel free to stay in touch, reach out, connect. That's what we're here for. The recording, as I mentioned earlier, will be made available along with the slides. And there's a lot of information we got through, but that's all good news for everybody to take a look at. So with that, thanks again so much for everyone sticking through the duration. And we hope to see you on kind of future opportunities as well. So with that, have a great rest of the day and take care of yourselves. So thanks so much.
Okay. Stay safe, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.